Hey guys. So today I wanted to chat about why singing, speaking, and chanting in Sanskrit can be so incredibly powerful for your practice and for your life. So, for those of you who don't know, Sanskrit is one of the oldest Indo European languages, and the word literally means perfected or refined. Now, Sanskrit is sort of a complex science that I know will barely be able to scratch the surface of. Beyond its properties as a healing tool and the role that it plays in linguistics, it's also used in computer programming and machine learning. There's even this thing called the Sanskrit effect, whereby these young apprentices, they come in and they have this ability to memorize sort of entire books of text and of hymns and of mantra and of ancient doctrine. They can memorize it word for word because of the ways that Sanskrit activates these various parts of the brain. So if you want to geek out, I 100% would advise you to go and do some research on like what Sanskrit is up to and how it's used. But I for today's video, we're going to keep it very relevant to us as just sort of lay people practitioners in our day-to-day lives. And so in order to understand that value, the first thing we need to understand is the difference between the representation of a thing versus the actual lived, felt embodiment of a specific thing. And so I'm going to explain that quickly with an example. So, if I were to say the word pot to you, right? Chances are when I say the word pot, you're going to maybe think of a pot. You might think of your favorite pot. If there's a pot in the room around you, you might even go and look at that pot. But when I say the word pot, it's not that you suddenly become a pot, right? It's not that you suddenly start to feel metally and silvery and shiny, the word pot is merely a representation for a different thing that is external from yourself, right? It is a psychological construct or agreement that we have all sort of agreed on, right? And in various languages, we have various different words for the word pot, and they all point towards or represent the same thing, right? But when we're looking at Sanskrit, if you have a word or a Sanskrit syllable or a mantra like Om Namah Shivaya, Kosyo, when you say that, you are not pointing towards a certain external thing. What you are doing is you're literally taking the vibration that you are saying and you are becoming that thing, right? So, really important to distinguish between sonic form. So if I say the word pot still has a sonic form, but by saying the word pot, you do not necessarily alter or enter into a state of pottedness, right? I mean, if you wanted to, I know that like drama kids and stuff do this. If you wanted to, you could be like, what does a pot feel like? And I'm going to pot myself. And you might even start to taste metal in your mind because your brain's like a genius. But it's a whole process that you have to actually take yourself through, right? Working with your psychological constructs. But when you are working with Sanskrit, if you say Om Namah Shivaya, there's no psychological construct. There's no that term Om Namah Shivaya does actually have a meaning that has been assigned to it by virtue of the traditions and by virtue of people's reverence and the storytelling culture of ancient India. It has a meaning assigned to it. But if you have like bija mantras, certain bija mantras don't mean anything. You can technically. You could say Hreem. Whoops, Mamma Mia. When I say Hreem or Shreem, it immediately activates within me a sonic vibration that has its own frequency, right? So we know that sound exists in a frequency. And when we map sound, you might see it as a sine wave where it goes like up and down, up and down, up and down. And so when you create these key signatures within your body, kayo, which at our most fundamental form, we too are vibration. When you create these vibrations in your body literally starts to attune and vibrate at these vibrations. Right? So it's not representational. When you speak in Sanskrit, you are literally embodying what's called the seeds of creation. And in fact, the Sanskrit syllables, and there's words, there's mantras, there's even just the syllables themselves, like ah, u, e, And when you say them, you literally start to feel the fundamental base creation energy, the energy on which everything that exists is fundamentally based. And if you are a manifestation science person, then you could think of it of when you're chanting Sanskrit, what you're doing is you're bringing in pure creation energy. You're bringing in pure Shakti, but minus the limiting beliefs. It is a purification and a cleansing process, which is again often why when you're singing and chanting and toning in Sanskrit, you'll see people start shaking and tremoring, and you see me go, woo, 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 woo. That's because as I bring in the energy of these higher vibrations, I'm literally shaking off, the same as a trauma response, I'm literally shaking off all the low vibrational thoughts, ideas, and feelings that are in my body, mind, and my field, right? You literally start to attune to these vibrations. And so what you'll notice is when you, after some time, or maybe quite fast, when you start to chant to Lakshmi, you'll you will notice a very real and distinct change in your vibration and your ideas around beauty and money and abundance and wealth and success. You're just going to feel more activated in that way. And you might even just have things coming into your life. I know that there was a month where I was specifically working with Lakshmi, my biggest sales months of this year, and I didn't have to do anything. It was people coming to me. Yeah. I don't want to overpromise things and be like, oh, if you chant to Lakshmi, it's just magic, and it's more complex than that. But you will absolutely within yourself notice distinct changes. If you chant to Shiva, you're going to notice you're just not going to give a crap about dumb stuff. Shiva's my babe, by the way. And you'll notice that there'll be certain mantras and certain aspects of mantras that are going to be more attractive to you by virtue of your nature, by virtue of your imprints, by virtue of the healing that is most relevant for you in any given moment, right? And that's also why at the beginning you might notice a little bit of resistance to chanting mantra, forgetting about the meaning, because the meaning, sometimes you'll read up on the meaning and you're like, I don't want to revere any, is this a cult? I know when I first started singing kirtan and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, it's cult city. But at that point, I was practiced enough to know that, firstly, I don't know, and I'm not that clever. And I was aware of the power of creating sonic essence within your body, mind, and your field, and its cleansing effect. So, anyway, my point is you might feel a little bit of resistance just because you are not yet at that vibration, right? So you're going to be clinging to the old. It's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But then as you keep going, as you open more, as you surrender more, as you soften the body more, you're going to find your ability to embody these vibrations and to change and liberate yourself is so much easier. And that's when you start to enter into those beautiful, transcendent, liberating, healing states. Or you might, I don't want to make any promises on what your progress is going to look like. Another reason why Sanskrit is so incredibly powerful, besides being literally comprised of the base seeds, the base sonic sounds of vibration, is also this thing known as lineage, right? So if I were to say, we're going to use an example of affirmations to draw the distinction here. So a lot of people will say things like, if you believe you can achieve, oh, that's my mantra, I say it every day. But technically speaking, that's not a mantra. Okay, that is an affirmation. And it's important to make the distinction between a mantra and an affirmation, firstly, for the reason that I previously said, which is that your affirmation, you're still working within the psychological constructs of your mind. You're saying, I believe, I achieve, and yes, that can become enlivened, and yes, you can feel it in your body, and it can shift your vibration, and it can bring in all of the good, happy hormones and all that good stuff. Absolutely, it can work that way. But where you are potentially, I don't want to say stealing from yourself, but where you're potentially having a missed opportunity is you can find mantras that have that same kind of essence or emboldening or enlivening, whatever you're trying to ground. You can find mantras that have that, traditional mantras. And what is amazing, what can really add some jet fuel to your practice and to your process, is the fact that mantras are not just these amazing purified sounds, but they are sounds that are activated and enlivened. And the way that they are activated and enlivened is through this thing called lineage. So your lineage is basically the understanding that, in historically and in the past, mantras were not just everywhere, and there's still a lot of super secret mantras. Let me not go too far, but mantras were revealed to you, and often they were revealed to you once you hit a certain level of attainment or purity of heart in terms of I really, really want to do this and I'm going to work with my mantra type of thing. So usually mantras were passed down from teacher to student within a lineage, right? Not so much anymore, and there's pros and cons to that being the case. Sometimes you actually even had to pay for mantras. Whoa, in certain traditions. Anyway, and there's both pros and cons to that. But basically what it means is that this energy, kasho, these signature vibrations, when you're saying Om Namah Shivaya, if that's what you want to say, you can say Om Namah Shivaya, just you as the individual, or you can say, I'm going to say Om Namah Shivaya, but as I say that, I'm going to, in this moment, connect to all the people in the world who are saying Om Namah Shivaya at the same time. And as soon as you do that, it's like a fireworks gone off in your body and you're like, heavens, like it enlivens it so much because separation doesn't necessarily exist. And particularly on the level of vibration and on sonic form, it doesn't necessarily exist. So if you have a certain level of awareness, if you're an energy worker, you're going to feel this. If you're not an energy worker, you can get there. Your teacher will help you get there. But it's something that is 100% real, and you suddenly feel yourself growing and expanding and letting go of stuff so much faster, So the power of lineage, and then, okay, so sorry. One more step is you can go, okay, I'm going to connect to everyone in the world who's saying the same mantra at the same time. But then, if you really want to play the games, you can also say, I am going to connect to everyone from the dawn of time who has ever chanted Om Namah. Mamma mia! So every monk, every teacher, from the moment dot, who has embodied the energetics of Om Namah Shivaya, I'm going to bring that into my... Woo! I'm going to bring that into my field to the best of my ability. And you can see I'm screaming because like it's moving through and it literally feels as if things are being pulled out of my arm and out of the left side of my body because that's where a lot of my blocks are. And I can only hold it for about a second before I'm like, and I start laughing because my body and my nervous system and everything is not yet attuned and practiced enough to hold an enlightened state. If I was super enlightened, I could be, I'll be like, take the whole world and it's great. But I'm not, and it's fine. You practice, and in the process of practicing, it can feel really beautiful and supportive and releasing your stuck energies, your dense energies. It's literally like calcified, like almost like sticky goop in various forms, but when you bring in these higher vibrations, it's almost like you bringing in heat to a piece of ice and it just like melts it away, and suddenly you're like, okay, I've got this space, I've got this room, I've got this new inspiration, and that is the gift of using traditional or classic mantra, is you get to leverage lineage, which is not something that you necessarily get to do when you're using affirmations. Like, yes, you can say, oh, I want to connect to everyone. If you say, I believe you can achieve, but at that point you're also still engaging to some degree the level of the mind, right? When you go into mantra, and particularly when you go into these deep states of trance with mantra, you are necessarily transcending the mind. You are just in pure vibration. You become just pure vibration to the degree that you can. And that's what enlightenment offers us. That is what the non-dual state offers us, is that unity consciousness. And you can't get there by still being engaged with the mind. Okay, so let me just see if I've left anything out. No, I think that was pretty much it. The main sort of points about why mantra and sound is so important, and also why it's not super important to know what it means. Because again, if you know what it means, or at least my rule is, when you're new, go in and just have the physical experience. Go in and be like, ooh, what is this tone? What does this sound mean for me? Because your body, your mind, and your field knows what's best for you. Okay? In traditional bhakti yoga, they have this thing called the Ishta Devatar, Kosho, which is basically, it can be a deity or a particular representation of a mantra that you have deep resonance and connection with, and you even start to form a real relationship. It feels like this is not necessarily a person, but like this is a force that protects me, and you start to dream about it and you start to sing it, and it comes up in your dreams and in your sleep, and all these amazing sort of wild things can happen, which is, again, can also become a distraction. So there's a whole conversation that needs to happen there. But what can happen is often people go like, oh, I'm going to research Lakshmi. Lakshmi seems great, or Parvati seems great, or Hanuman seems like me. And that's just the mind. And if there's one thing that I know for sure, is that the mind is a tricksy fox, and usually more than ever. The mind likes to keep us stuck in who and where we are. And so I don't have too much trust for the mind. I have trust for taking things in an embodied form and seeing how my body, mind, and my field responds to it, and feeling the healing, cleansing effect, and then letting that lead me, as opposed to who I think I am or who I think I want to be. Like, my system is what it is. And so sonic form and vibration will not lie. And that's why it's my recommendation, when you start, just make the tones and see what happens. And then thereafter, once you are relatively proficient in engaging with mantra and engaging with mantra deities, if that's the way that you want to go, then you can bring in a little bit of discernment, because you've already established a strong foundation of surrender and of speaking and engaging with the space. And I mean, ultimately, none of the stuff matters, ultimately. But when you're getting started, the mind can fight you, your body can fight you, you don't know how to open. Oh, do I sound good? Oh, is this a cult? Oh, what is happening? You know, there can be a lot of things to need to transcend or work through. And that's why my invitation is, at the beginning, just get a sense of, number one, the vibrations moving through you and the release and the cleansing effect, and number two, of your autonomy in the space. Because again, sometimes people don't want to practice things like that. They'll be like, oh, I'm overwhelmed and I can't do it. You can, if it's not for you, you stop. If you don't want to do it, you stop, right? Before injecting made up fears or preconceptions about what this is, jump in, feel and experience it for yourself, and then continue to empower yourself from there. So yeah, I hope that this is helpful. I hope that this inspires you and encourages you in our time singing together. And I hope to see you very soon. Lots of love. Have a beautiful day. Mwah.